Hello and welcome to the channel. This is a video that I did about feeding goldfinches. They're an interesting little bird. I like the bright yellow colors and I've been able to attract them, and this is how I do it. So this is my setup at the front of the house, and as you can see I have been able to attract a few finches. I usually only get them during the summer. I don't really see them in the winter. I see all kinds of other finches, but not goldfinches. So these are the three types of feeders that I use. You can see that they're all tube feeders. They have different size holes and different layouts. So the purpose of these feeders and choosing these feeders is to feed the goldfinches, but discourage other types of birds, notably starlings. I have a real starlings problem. I was using these feeders here, which are my aspect tube feeders. I really like the aspect tube feeders. They have a long warranty. They are really good quality, and they're easy to clean. Um, their plastic tube is much thicker than these other ones, so they tend to stand out. Um, why would you need a warranty on a bird feeder? Well, all the tube is made of plastic, and plastic and ultraviolet rays don't mix. So you can actually get tubes cracking over the years. The aspect ones with the metal fittings have a lifetime warranty. They have some that have plastic fittings, and they typically have 10 years. But anyways, so these aspect feeders, I did originally have little trays at the bottom that you can put on them, and that allows the birds to stand in the tray and feed. It works, or I put them on because it helps birds of various sizes or makes it easier for them to feed. Sometimes the birds can't actually or have a tougher time feeding out of these feeders because there's just a certain distance between the pegs that the birds are standing on and the feeding hole. The problem is the starlings would sit on the trays and scare away all other types of birds, and then they would just dig in the feeding holes and spread stuff on the ground, the seed on the ground, and they would start um, then jump down and feed that way. So I took the trays off, and that discouraged the starlings for a while. But they eventually would just clamp onto the smaller pegs here and sit there beating their wings, and that allowed them to sort of stay upright long enough for them to scrape a bunch of the food out. The long and short of it is, I mean, I don't really dislike starlings, other than they're bullies to the other birds. They squawk and everything else. Um, so I prefer the finches. So I talked to my local nature store person, and they suggested the cages. And the cages were great. I get great enjoyment watching both squirrels and starlings climb onto the cages and get very frustrated that they can't reach the feeders inside. But as you can see here and here, it's very easy for the finches to get through these fairly large holes and reach the feeder, but it's too big for starlings and too big for squirrels. So that's the one aspect. The large feeding holes allow you to use different feed. Um, so one of the things I found, the very first birds I ever attracted to my bird feeder were actually gold finches. I was originally trying to get blue jays, and I will tell you they like sunflower seed hearts. That is, you can buy them. They're more expensive than just sunflower seeds because they're they're basically the inner meat of a sunflower seed. So there's sunflower seeds with the shells taken off, and these larger holes allow you to feed them with sunflower seed hearts, and the finches really like it. They go through it pretty quickly. So you can see here on this feeder I have Niger seeds at the top and the sunflower hearts at the bottom. So I mix and match in the feeders, but typically the larger hold feeders I use the sunflower hearts. Then the smaller feeders I use Niger seeds and then a blend of seed that is called Finch's Feast from Nature's Nest, the store that I shop at, and the birds seem to like it. So the other two types of feeders that I have is you don't see them in this. I have another shot of the one which is just a straight pole with small pegs. So the small pegs that the birds can perch on distract or not distract, frustrate larger birds and starlings. These coiled, the third type is this bird feeder with the coil around it, and you can see a finch here and here and here and here, and they kind of like these ones because they can move up the spiral to get a better angle, if you want to call it that, at the holes. So different types of finches can, they're not forced to work with uh, pegs set in at certain angles. They can choose a spot on the spiral and they can use that to reach the holes. So let's just continue here. Um, so you'll see they're fluttering around. They they do tend to fight over stuff, which is too bad. But in most cases, there's enough. I put out enough feed that and have enough feeders that they can all find some place to perch. So yeah, you get a good number of them coming around. I know you don't really have to feed them. This is done in June, July. You don't really have to feed them at this time of year, but I like watching them, so I feed them pretty much year round. They're smaller birds. The seeds are smaller, so they don't they go through it pretty quick, but not that quick that it's a horrible expense. You can see here that they will use any one of the three feeders that I put in. You can see the males are more bright. Okay, so this is the cage and how to put it together. So it's just got a bottom panel. It has some hooks to keep it together so the squirrels can't get into it. And then there's some small guide holes for you to line it up. So you just take the aspect feeder and put it in, and you hold the handle up and then slip the handle through the slot on the top of the feeder, which is easy enough to do. This one needs a bit of a clean. You can see there's a bit of bird poop on it. I'll have to get that done. But there's the guides to put in. There's two of these, one on either side, so that helps you get alignment. I'll get it together here in a bit. And then you just snap these little fasteners here, and that keeps the cage together. It is, so far at least, squirrel proof. They haven't figured out how to get around it, but yeah, and then you pick up the handle and then just hang it. And there you go. There is how to use the cages. Not that expensive. So this is the other type of feeder I was talking about, the tube feeder. You can see the very small holes, and that's the reason I use this, is that only the finches have a beak small enough to get into the holes. Other bigger birds can't get their beak in the holes, so that eliminates them. You can see the holes spread here, and then you can see the wire wrapped around it. So the one on the left has pegs, and they will actually hang upside down from those pegs and feed at a lower hole, which is something I find interesting. So this is Niger seed, which is pretty common for finches. So I use that in the yellow tube feeders I have, and then this is a blend created by Nature's Nest, great store, called Finch's Feast, and it has a wide variety of little seeds that work with these tube feeders. As you can see here, the birds are right now. It's all Niger seed that's in there, but I'll rotate in some Finch's Feast. Kind of depends on what I have at hand. But yeah, I can hear the water in the background. I'm just sitting here washing the dishes and enjoying the view out my window and watching the birds feed. And you can see how many of them. There's four on the one uh, tube feeder, and then there's a bunch of them flitting around the spiral feeders. And you can see the two birds sort of racing around the feeder there. So that is it. That's what I recommend. The cages will help you use existing feeders that potentially have been a problem for you with starlings. They the ones with the spiral around, they're very popular with finches because they can scoot along the railing, and it allows finches of different sizes to sort of position the best location for them to get into the little holes, which is this what you're seeing here. And then the third type of feeder I had is very much like this feeder. They aren't very expensive. They're actually quite inexpensive. But rather than the spiral, it just has small pegs. And again, the bigger birds can't handle the small pegs. They can't handle the tiny holes. So as long as you feed them something small enough for them to get through the holes, which are as Niger seeds and Finch's Feast, they're pretty good. The larger holes here will take the sunflower hearts, which I highly recommend as a food. And you can see there's one finch here, two, three. There's no problem. There's a finch that's made it through the cage, and this guy is just about to go through the cage. So they have no problems doing that. So that's what I use. I use the aspect. I use a tube with pegs and then these tubes with spiral. And no complaints from the finches so far, and it gives me great pleasure and lots of entertainment watching the birds feed. So hopefully that will help you with your um, feeding of finches.